Hello and welcome back. Now, this time we're going to dive into the deployment of the model, and we'll use Streamlit in this course. I have created another course where we use Flask, but here I want to show you how you can use Streamlit for that. And Streamlit is a really powerful and really nice library which is available in Python to us. And in case you don't have to install it yet, you first would have to install it. You can go to the terminal and simply run that pip install Streamlit, for instance, Streamlit. And then you would install Streamlit this way. Of course, you can also install it in a virtual environment. I also encourage you to do that in case you don't want to put all the libraries and codes into your base environment. You want to create something separate from that. Then you can use, of course, a virtual environment for that. So you would simply run pip env, for instance, and then install, and then Streamlit, right? Streamlit, like that. So that would work exactly the same way. Pip env install Streamlit. Hopefully it's big enough on the screen, I'm not sure, but I can write it here as well. Pip env install Streamlit, right? Streamlit, like that. So you can run this command in your terminal to install or create the environment, install Streamlit, in case you want to use a virtual environment. Of course, then you wouldn't have to activate it and then run Streamlit in there. However, I have installed Streamlit on my base environment because I'm using it here very often, so that's fine for me. So just install it first, of course, and then you're able to follow along. What you can also see is I opened here Visual Studio Code, because in order to run Streamlit, we need to create a Python file, a .py file, so we can't run it in the Jupyter Notebook. So that is why I created this str.py file. I call it str, but you can name it whatever you like. You'll see that if I go to the folder here itself, it's simply a normal Python file. It's simply str.py, could be banana.py, could be anything, right? A simple Python file which is empty at the beginning. Okay, and I'm using here, as I said before, Visual Studio Code, but feel free to use any kind of code editor you want, okay? So now let's get started. At first, in order to create this Python file, we need to import libraries and dependencies. It's the same way as always. So in this case, we use Streamlit. So we can simply say import Streamlit as st. St, again, is simply an abbreviation, which is commonly used, so we don't have to type Streamlit the whole time. Okay, so that's the first thing. And now, continue, let's actually create our first Streamlit code. Okay, for instance, st dot, and now we can use various different things, which you can see here. But in this case, we start simply say st.title, for instance, title. And then all we need to do is we need to put in some text here. So, for instance, let's get started. Okay, like that, for instance. And that's actually all we need to do. And if I press Ctrl S to save it now, I can already run this. As you can see here, let me actually remove this here. And if I go now to the folder itself here, like that, I could go in here, open the terminal, like that, and then I can run this Python file here. So I can simply type in streamlit, run, and then I say str.py, or whatever you name this Python file, okay? Simply call streamlit, run, and then app.py. This, of course, requires that you're able to run Python from anywhere on your computer. In case you can't do that, then you would first have to go to the environment variables in your computer and point your Anaconda folder to it, so you can run Python from anywhere. Just in case you got any issues here, of course, feel free to ask, okay? So, as I said before, you simply type in streamlit run, string.py, or str.py, not string.py, and if we do this and press the run button here, you'll see that now it's running on the local host. You can see it's opening, and you can see it's let's get started here, right? So you can see exactly the text here, which is now available for us. And that is how easy it is to get Streamlit running. And now let's actually modify or add a few additional things here to our code. So if I go back, so far we only have a title, right? So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Let's say we also want to write header, so st.header, for instance, and then we can type in some text. Works exactly the same way. The basics, okay, for the header. And then we, for instance, go in here and say st.subheader, okay, subheader, and then we type in, for instance, how to use Streamlit, okay, like that, for instance. And whenever we save it, Ctrl S to save it, and let's actually go back in here, and you can see here you have the option to rerun it manually, or you can tick on always rerun. So if I tick on now always rerun, you'll see that now we also got the basics here and how to use Streamlit. So basically our header as well as our subheader here. Pretty easy implemented in this, well, in this case, running server here on the local host. But of course, if you would have a server, you can run Streamlit on the server as well, right? Not only on your local host. So, okay, so that's that. So we got this as well. And let's actually add a few additional things or learn a few additional things. So if you want to write text, pretty simple, st.text, like that. and then you can type in some text. For instance, I am writing text here, okay, like that. We save it again, and if we go back to our Explorer here, we'll see that it has immediately changed, right? Because we tipped in always rerun. That is why it's rerunning all the time. So as soon as we change something here, it gets updated here, okay? All right, so that is that. Let's learn a few additional things about the basics. So st dot, for instance, markdown is available, and here you can type in also some text. For instance, this, or let's say creating a markdown. Of course, you can write anything you like, and you'll see that if I make this smaller, currently nothing has changed, but as soon as I save it here, Control S to save it, you see it exactly appears here, okay? So pretty easy to do. So what else can we do? Well, we can easily enter success or infos or warning or errors and highlighting them with colors. So that's also available in Streamlit by default. So if you write, for instance, st.success, here we go, and then you enter some text, for instance, the text is success, and let's actually write the other ones as well. st.info, info is one button, so you can type in info here, and then we could also go with st.warning, and type in warning here, right? Let's actually capitalize that, warning, because I capitalized everything. And it's actually, final one is the error, st.error here, for instance, error, and also call this error, okay? So the text is totally up to you, but that's how easy it is to create this highlighted, color highlighted message. So, and if I save it, Control S to save it, you'll see that that's basically what gets created. Success, info, warning, error. So basically you get those color text boxes, and you can write any message you want inside. So pretty easy, right? So normally it would be pretty, well, not a lot of work at least. Not necessarily difficult, but a lot of work to write all of this in HTML yourself. But here it's really easy to implement with Streamlit directly in here, right? Even though there are, of course, Bootstrap and other things in HTML, I know that, but still, that is pretty easy, at least from my point of view, using Streamlit. So that is why I really like this options and this library here. And what else can we do? Well, there are a few additional things, like, for instance, checkboxes, radio buttons, and so on. So let's actually dive a little bit into that. So if I go in here and say, for instance, we can check something with normal Python code, say if st.checkbox, like that, and then we simply need to enter some data here. For instance, let's say like or don't like. Don't call it don't like that. Like, so don't like that, and of course double point here, and then we simply say if that's the case. So basically we want to write something, let's say st.text, and then we can enter here, for instance, I like. Okay, so that's, for instance, you can run it, press Control S to run it, and you'll see that now we have this button here, like, don't like, and if we tick it, you can see I like appears, right? So that is how easy it is to using normal if conditions here in Python, using a checkbox here, and then write something in case the checkbox is checked. In case it is not checked, deselect it, and you can see it's gone, right? So again, pretty easy to implement, and that's why, as I said before, but I like to repeat myself, this is really great. So, okay, so that's that. What else can we do? Well, here we got the checkbox, but of course, as I said before, there's also other things available. For instance, we can check status. For instance, we can say, with the radio buttons, we can say, for instance, or let's say actually, let's call this Python. Let's call it yeah, just make sure that I don't. Let's call it Python. Yeah, Python is equal to, and now let's say st.radio, for radio button, and then we simply ask a question: do you like Python? And then we need to actually add the options which are available here in parentheses. So we can simply say yes, and the second option would be no, like that, and that's it for that. And then we can simply check that. For instance, if in this case, and say if Python is equals to yes, then we want to do something else. We want to do something else, right? For instance, then we could write st.success. We already know this is the green box, and say great choice, like that. Okay. And else, so else we could simply write, or if we could also check if Python is equal to no, but there are actually only two options here, yes or no. So we can simply write else and say st.info in this case maybe, and say in this course we use Python. Okay, so like that, for instance, and we can run this. And again, we go back in here and you can see a string is not callable, so there's a little issue here. And I can already see it. There is a comma missing, so I type in a comma in here. And also what I can see is success. I misspelled it here. I need a second S here. And if I run this again, now you can see we got this. Great choice. Do you like Python? By default, it's yes. If I put in no, you see that it updates to an info button. In this course, we use Python. So I tick it to yes. Okay? And that's it actually for this first part. In the next video, we gonna continue with our introduction to Streamlit. So hopefully you're excited. I can't wait to see you there. Until then, best guys.